Now I'm joined for our sports preview by our sports editor Derrick Lynch. Derrick, good morning to you.
Morning, Alan.
Thanks very much for being with us. Before we look ahead, let's look back to Clare's second and unfortunately last game. Well, maybe we'll discuss whether it's unfortunate in the Munster Senior Hurling League. Defeat to Cork by the minimum in Mallow on Monday evening, 118 to 20 points. And I suppose much like Clare late on defeated Limerick, it was a late on victory for Cork as well. Probably would have expected some sort of response from Cork given the manner of their defeat to Limerick.
Yeah, but I suppose the reality is Clare were 4 or 5 points up with 10 minutes to go in this game, so I think they'll be desperately disappointed to not see it out. Now the game did turn on a rather dubious enough, and look, I know we're biased in saying that, but I felt it was a dubious enough penalty decision. Conor Cleary and Alan Walsh were grappling away in the square. It looked 50-50. Johnny Murphy made the decision from about 80 yards away without consulting his umpires, which to me seems strange because they had the best view of it all. But ultimately Ben Cunningham dispatched the penalty, and that put Cork into the lead for the first time in the game in the 57th minute. So that was a big turning point. Now, all that being said, no more than that famous free that wasn't a couple of years ago in the Munster final against Limerick down the Gaelic grounds on Tony Kelly. It really shouldn't have come down to that. Clare should have this game seen out. They had a free. Now Mark Rodgers came on, took over the free taking duties, nailed 3 in a row at one stage to put Clare 4 points up with about 15 minutes to play. But there was a free just before that penalty incident that went wide. Cork come up the field to get the penalty. On such small margins, big games can turn. So I think that's where Clare will look at from a disappointing perspective. 12-7 up, having played with the wind. Coughed up a couple of very simple scores to Cork in the closing stages to kind of keep them in touch. Like 5 points going in with the breeze to come wasn't a very bad situation for Cork to be in. Albeit, as I say, Clare held out and didn't trail until the 3 minutes from full time. These pre-season games were only 60 minutes long. So in that, they had 6 wides in the first half, 5 in the second, and the Cork goalkeeper O'Sullivan pulled off a brilliant save for Mark Rodgers late on as well. So Clare had enough chances to win the game. Ultimately Cork punished them, but you know, it was a kind of a night where we said there was a lot of younger guys that were getting their chance. It was a difficult night, swirling wind, sticky enough ground conditions. You know, it'll be a mile separated from what it'll be across the road here for the first round of the championship. But I think there's 1 or 2 might be kind of looking over their shoulder for the phone call to say that, you know, you're not making a National League panel after the game. That would just be my feeling on it. So I think you get the management plenty food for thought. Yeah, and that's, before we move on, I wanted to ask you about how you think Brian Lohan will view this, because we heard him speaking after the win over Limerick saying it wasn't, you know, look, it's not the be all and end all, and the primary purpose, I suppose, of the Munster Hurling League is to get a bit of game time into the legs, try out new players and so on, and get them up to kind of match sharpness for the league, which is coming fast down the tracks. But when, you know, we also talked about winning any bit of silverware, no matter how important or unimportant it is, it helps with confidence. Clare, if they just had held out, would be in that final. Instead it's Limerick against Waterford. Even despite him viewing it as not the be all and end all, just still think the manner in which they missed out on a chance to win silverware will irk Brian Lohan a bit, given how close they were to beating Cork. Yeah, I think it'd be more the extra competitive game, to be honest, rather than the silverware was on offer aspect. At the end of it, yeah. Because, you know, a draw would have done Clare, you know, and they lost by a point, and you know, that's always kind of sickening enough to take. But at the same time, I don't think he'll be overly despondent. It just, again, it was a night where it was far removed from the type of hurling you'll be playing as the year wears on. Touch was off, a couple of lads looked leggy, you know, one-handed pickups on a January night just will not work, and there was a lot of that, you know, missed pickups leading to rucks and different little bits and pieces. It looked to me like a squad that, and they probably are, going through a heavy block of training at the moment with the National League in sight. I would imagine there'll be a fairly heavy 15v15 A versus B played this weekend, and from that then I would imagine the 26 for Dublin will kind of materialise from that. So while he's, you know, probably disappointed not to get another extra competitive game, I'd say now they'll batten down the hatches in Carlohan or in Parkis Oak, wherever they'll do it, and there will be a rip-roaring game between themselves, because that'll be the ultimate competition when there's, you know, jerseys up for grabs and all the rest of it. And we did see a strong enough Clare team. Like Tony Kelly started in place of Cathal Malone. Cathal came on at half time. Mark Rodgers was called from the bench. Shane Meehan was called from the bench. You know, so there was plenty of experience. Rory Hayes as well. But a couple of lads I thought that did well. I thought Dylan McMahon now had a really good game at wing back. Dermot Ryan is settling into the 6th role, which is great. Conor Cleary, Cork didn't really have too many clear-cut goal-scoring chances. I thought Connor gave great solidity at full-back, albeit involved in the penalty incident. So there are a good few positives to take from that perspective. And okay, they shot 11 wides, but they scored 20 points. They had another shot that hit the post, and they had the goal opportunity. So that's 33, 34 shots at the post in 60 odd minutes. Like, that's what you want to see lads doing, is taking on those opportunities. So yeah, disappointed with the result. A couple of little bits they want to improve on, but as we say, not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, let's move on to a game happening on Saturday, and a team, one Clare side, could take a step closer to silverware. That is the semi-finals of the Dr. Harty Cup. The last four situation, we have an all-tip and an all-Clare clash. Of course, we know where our focus is on, and that's the meeting of the team with the most success in the competition. St. Flannan's taking on St. Joseph's of Tulla. This is very much one to look forward to, so set the scene for us. Yeah, well, first of all, I would imagine Francis Street is going to be quite busy on Saturday afternoon. It's a 12:30 start in Zimmerby Park Isog for the game, which I think is the correct decision. Like, it's two Premier Clare schools. County grounds should be where it's played, and I think that will lend itself to a really good, open, fast, really competitive game of hurling. As we mentioned last week, you've got Brendan Bugler and Terence Fahy in the management teams. Obviously Whitegate clubmates and soldiered together there for many years and were involved in the Clare 20s. You have clubmates coming into it. I'm just looking here at some of the players. You'll have Dara McNamara of Clooney Quinn and Pa Finneran lining out for St. Flannan's, and they'll be taking on their own clubmates in the likes of Matthew Corbett and Jerry O'Connor. So that's really interesting, that you only probably get at schools level, obviously. And then several of the Clare under 20s of recent seasons. A guy that I rate two guys I rate really highly on the Flannan's team, Rory Ralph and Harry Doherty. And then you've got Liam Murphy, as I mentioned as well, from the Mills. And Jerry O'Connor really introduced himself last year as a real senior star for Clooney Quinn. That point he got against Kilnamona to win that game at the death, which ultimately sparked their run all the way to the county final. So this is two teams really, really stacked with an awful lot of talent. And these Harty games, the atmosphere they bring is savage, because both school communities will turn out in force. You'll probably have ultras at either end with flags and foghorns and every other kind of thing that goes with it, and a huge, I would imagine, neutral interest in this as well, just from a Clare hurling perspective, because of the success we've seen at minor and 20 and the real quality players that we're seeing coming through. So yeah, it really is going to be a cracking occasion, I think. Okay, would it be fair to ask you to call us? I don't worry, you won't be a hostage to fortune. So I promise we won't throw it back in your face if you call it incorrectly. Look, to be fair, it's probably difficult to call it, because we probably haven't seen enough of both teams throughout the competition to make any fair assessment. Both dogged late to win their semi-finals, so that would suggest to me that this is not going to be done long before the 60 minutes is played. Bench impact could be massive. Both have that in spades, I suppose, none more so than St. Flannan's, who had Thomas O'Connor, son of the great Christie, nephew of the great Jamesy, coming off the bench, scoring 1-1 or 1-2 the last day. So that's going to be a massive impact, and again, it'll create a headache for management. After a showing like that, do you start Tom O'Connor in that forward line? So yeah, it's really going to be, I'm going to sit on the fence on it, just for the simple reason I don't think that we've seen enough of both teams to make a qualified call on it, and that'll make sure that no matter who wins, I'll be able to speak to either management team after the game as well. But and that's the other thing too, really looking for, it's live with us here on Clare FM from 12:30 on Saturday, to soak up all the atmosphere that'll be around. So yeah, just really looking forward to it. And as we say then, Saturday January 31st is the date for the Harty final, and it'll be either Tulla or St. Joseph's against Nina or Thurles CBS. Again, probably looking at, you'd imagine, a Limerick venue maybe for that or something. So it's another day out, and as we say, whoever wins on Saturday qualifies for the All-Ireland series as well. So there's an awful lot on the line here, so it should be a cracking game. Okay, make sure you check that out live on Clare FM. Make sure you check out Sideline View this evening as well with Derrick, where I'm sure he'll have a big preview of that game. Derrick Lynch, thank you very much.